Hello and welcome to Connections again with me, your host Eileen Curlin-Walsh. Back in June of this year, the theme of our show was examining the meaning and purpose of our lives for the benefit of ourselves and others. We talked to John Hunt on that show, a 95-year-old man who shared the adventures and experiences that had coloured and shaped his worldview. And as we emphasize the value of stories, we encourage viewers to write and share their own. After the show, we heard from our guest today, Bink Burke. Not only had Bink too lived a full 95 years of life and lessons, she had written a book about some of those experiences, particularly the loss of her young son Andrew to cancer at 18 years of age. And we are delighted to have Bink here with us today to share her story, share her wisdom, and talk about her life. Welcome, Bink. Welcome to Connections. We're delighted to have you here. How about starting with telling us a little bit about where you were born? You were born in 1920.
Right.
Were you born here in Chicago?
I was, at home.
At home, no hospital,
Nope.
right? And you were a healthy baby.
Yes.
And what was the Chicago like when you were a little girl, Bink?
Chicago was, I think, there wasn't the crime that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
People were more pleasant to talk to
Mm-hmm.
and dressed entirely different, of course.
Mm-hmm.
There were no slacks. Women had dresses and hats and gloves to go out, to go downtown. You had to wear that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a much more friendliness than there is at this time.
And Bink, your mother was from Spain. And
She was from Spain. She was an excellent dressmaker and did smocking, which you don't even hear about now. She did some for Marshall Fields. And she also was a great cook, unusual cook. I attribute some of my health to her preparation of food and the things she did for us. Never a doctor, never shots.
Okay, so you were happy and healthy in that 1920s
Right.
childhood. And you went to boarding school at the age of 5, Bink.
Yes.
Was that a frightening, lonely experience?
Not really. It was a wonderful experience. I can remember getting on the train, and she didn't have a car, and my father had left her, and our clothes were packed in boxes, and we had to have a uniform. And when we got there, she had to leave us very quickly. The nuns were terrific. There was a sister, Eleanor, that was like another mother, and she took me to the bed upstairs. There were about 30 beds, maybe more, 3 rows of beds and dressers, and all these kids of every age in their beds. And I cried because I couldn't sleep next to my sister. But after a few days, I liked the girls next to me so much. We had fun. We really had fun. We were outside a lot, and I learned how to roller skate a little bit. And I just loved the school and the people and the nuns. We had to go to Mass every morning. And the faith and trust in God that they gave us was just beautiful. It never left me.
Isn't that wonderful? And it's terrific to hear such a positive story about your experience with the Catholic Church and with the nuns amidst so many difficult ones we hear, Bink. So you went to Catholic high schools. What kind of a student were you as a teenager?
I was A1.
You were, of course. You were a smart girl.
Because we came from teaching that had been so much better. They wanted me to be promoted, but I didn't want to promote.
And you wrote for your school paper.
I was one of the editors of the school paper, and it was wonderful. That's where I got my nickname, Bink.
And the Bink was for?
Brink. My maiden name was Brink.
Your last name. And you won poetry prizes, so there was always a bit of a writer in you, which came out when you felt the need to write your book after your son's death, which we will speak about later. How about your husband? How did you meet the love of your life?
A friend of mine that had been in high school and grammar school with me and went to college with me. We we were at a meeting it was a reunion in Adrian, where the college was, Adrian, Michigan, Dominican nuns, and his sister was there, and we met her. And her name was Eileen also, Sister Eileen Burke, wonderful lady. And after we talked to her a while, my friend Dottie said, "Oh, you've got to meet her brother. He's just your type. He'd be just right for you." And Dottie and I were very close friends. And then later we were at the beach one day, and one of his friends came along and he said, "Hey, Tom, come over here and meet Bink. Her father owns Brink's Express." And I always kidded him because he called me the next night for a date.
He did.
With $1.25. He said, "Would you go out with me on $1.25? I have to take some bottles back." I said, "Tom, I'd go out with you on a quarter."
I love that story. And you went on to
We were-
marry. Excuse me.
We had so much fun together. They always had house parties. Nobody had much money to go out, so different homes. The Gallaghers always had a house party, and the mothers were always there. They were nice parties, you know. You danced, they had a little music, and got a ride home. And anyway, one night we had been out, and Tom said, "When I make $35 a week, I'm going to ask you to marry me." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." So another night, knock on the door. We lived in a little cottage on the lake. And Tom comes in and takes his hat off. A man always took their hat off. And they always wore a hat when they went out, and the overcoat. And he says, "Sit down a minute." And I did. He went down on his knees, took my hand. He said, "I'm making $37.50 a week. I just got the raise." I said, "Oh, Tom, now we can get married." So he always said I asked him to marry him.
Oh, even though he was already on his
He was,
knees and had met the criteria.
You know, he was, Eileen could tell you, he was the kindest man. He was handsome. He was always good to us. His paycheck went in the drawer. He kept his car fare. Nobody took money out of it. The kids could sometimes take change. That was okay. He left a little change that they could have for candy or something. But that was the way he presented his paycheck to me. And he wanted nothing for himself. And he'd say to me, "How do you do so much with so little?" He was an artist, and a good one.
And you had a large family. You had many children. What was the experience of having that many children before your husband's tragic death, which we'll talk about next? But you had...
Well, I had 11 with him because I did remarry Bill, and that didn't work out. He wasn't a bad man. It was just a bad marriage. We both were in love with our former loves.
Yeah. So you had 12 children in total. So what would you say you learned from having such a large family? I know there was a lot of work in raising them. I think we could assume that.
The big thing is they all started to help me. I mean, they knew how to cook and go to the store and run the vacuum. I didn't ask them to change the babies. I didn't think they should do that. But they'd take them for walks and play with them, taught them a lot. They taught each other. And Eileen was a wonderful leader.
And Bink, did you teach each child to take on more responsibility as more babies came, or was that natural? Were you fairly...
They had little jobs. Saturday morning was cleaning day before they went out to play. And they played. They had a lot of friends. There were 94 children in our block in Beverly, and it was a wonderful neighborhood. The school was good. The church was good. The people were nice.
So you had an idyllic family, a loving relationship, and then your husband died, Bink, at only...
And we loved each other so much. I mean, he was so good to me. He taught me a great deal. And you couldn't... I don't think he ever raised his voice to anybody in the family. He'd tell you in a nice way, that's what you should do. And he was always there for them too when they wanted him. And the day he'd run for a train in the morning, you could see him running from the house to the corner on Longwood, and then the train was just there. And he ran. I always think of those words, would you leave me running through the snow? It was snowing. It was the 27th of February. And he just ran, and then the boy across the street knocked on the door, and he said, "Oh, Mrs. Burke, your husband fell by the train." I put my robe on and my boots, and I ran over there, and he was on the ground. And they put me in the ambulance with him to go to the hospital, and very shortly they told me he was gone. And I had to get a ride home. I can still remember little Barbie standing at the door. She said, "Is Daddy going to be okay?" And I had to tell them their father had died. And I think Eileen was at work, weren't you, when you had to come home? And anyway, I knelt down with them and we said a rosary. And there was a tremendous crowd, the whole neighborhood, because everybody knew everybody else, and we had so many children. And it was I don't know, I couldn't just sit around. I did cry. I almost wished to be dead myself. But then I knew I had to take care of these wonderful children.
So is that how you cope with the loss, having to go on for your children?
Really, that made me stronger, knowing that. And they each in their own way turned around to help me. And they still do.
Full disclosure, I too am one of 12 children. Bink had 12 children, 6 boys, 6 girls. I too am from the exact same family, same number. I can attest to the difficulty times growing up with so many children all clamoring for our parents' attention. But really that joy, that companionship, the ability to have someone help you or help someone, no matter the day, the hour, the time, the places, it really does. You get repaid 12-fold, 100-fold. So it was
true.
a lovely experience.
Oh, even at his mass, the people were crowded outside. They couldn't all get in church.
And after your husband died, you did have your 12th child, Andrew. And Andrew is the subject of your book, Bink, because having read your book, and we're certainly going to tell the viewers how they can find it after we discuss it, it's the story of how your youngest child did get diagnosed with cancer at a young age, and the story of his sickness, his faith, and his death. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Andrew and his journey?
His what?
His journey. Just tell us about Andrew.
Oh, we were all so happy to have Andy. It was like a gift to the kids. They all played with him and loved him and carried him around. And he was always happy, never spoiled. But it was just, like I say, a gift. And Andy, one teacher had written me on his report card, "It is such a joy to have Andy in our class." He was always good-natured. Even dogs liked him. But, and he became a Boy Scout with his brothers and later, and then he fell when he was 17, took a really bad fall. In fact, the first time I noticed it, I picked him up at school, and I saw him limping to the car. I asked him what was the matter. He says, "Oh, I don't know, Mom. I didn't want to tell you. This hurts me so bad right here. It's in his hip." And I said, "Oh, we got to do something about that, Andy." So I did take him to a doctor and then a chiropractor. And the chiropractor tried to help him with exercise, and then this doctor examined him, and he said, "I hate to tell you this, but your son has cancer." And I took him out of the country for treatment. I didn't believe in our treatment here. I took him to Montserrat.
So let's talk a little bit about that. You didn't believe in the traditional treatment for cancer, the chemotherapy.
But he finally had it. They wanted to take his leg off. And I took him out of the hospital. I wouldn't give him morphine. I gave him the vitamins. And some supervisor came in to examine him, thinking I was committing a crime. And he lasted quite a while. And his brother John helped him a great deal. They all helped him. They made him laugh. His attitude was wonderful.
And Bink, you mentioned the vitamins, and I did read your book, and it's beautiful. And you focus a lot on how you have lived your life by and believe in the value of vitamins and a healthy lifestyle, as opposed to always looking for a pill, a tablet, something from traditional medicine to help. So tell us a little bit about your belief and your experience with natural remedy.
The way I found out, I had to learn to drive a car. And Fred Beauchard, the teacher, one day when he came, I couldn't go, and I said I was tired. He said, "Well, that's too bad, but I have to charge you $15. Okay, here I'll go. So I got in the car, and he said, "You know, you shouldn't be that tired." He said, "You might need vitamins, and you don't know it." And he went on, and he said, "We're having a meeting in Oak Lawn tonight. How about if I pick you up and bring you home?" Wonderful. So I went with him, and I listened to these people, some of them in their hundreds, who had been taking the vitamins, and it helped their problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I took my first little bottle home. And I decided, after taking them, I'd give them to the children. And so when Fred came over with another bottle, I said, "I'm going to take a couple bottles and give them to the kids." And the evidence there was so tremendous. Bernie had a thyroid problem. That's the one that was with me yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a lump in his throat, and they wanted to operate. And I didn't want him to operate. I never wanted him to operate. And they told me if I got the vitamins, it would give him enough iodine to supply his thyroid, which could cure him.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, it did.
Wonderful.
And other times, other little things. Colds were never after that. Vitamin C, cold is gone.
Mm-hmm.
E is for the brain. I need more, probably. But I take all that. And they'll talk to you anytime at the company, which is wonderful.
So, Bink, would you say one of the secrets to mental and physical health at 95 is the healthy lifestyle and to take vitamins?
It is a blessing. And I even have a book, God and Vitamins.
God and vitamins.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
And I believe they say God never closes one door that he doesn't open another.
Mm-hmm.
When Fred Beauchard opened that car door for me and took me to get the vitamins, I learned so much. And these people were honest, people that got up and spoke. And I knew I haven't been without them since the day I started.
And your vitality is a testament to the vitamins and God. And since you mentioned God, your faith has also been a tenet of your life throughout your book. It's infused with faith. Would you say then faith has also been one of the building blocks, the values, the belief you've lived your life by?
Faith is right there. I talk to God a lot, and he answers pretty well too. Did you know the most famous words in the Bible are God is love?
God is love.
I put that on my tombstone. God is love.
Beautiful. All right, let's go back to Andy and his illness. So you tried traditional medicine, you tried non-traditional, you said you went to Montserrat for treatment, but ultimately...
They gave him regular vitamins and natural food, And he was a little better when he came home. He was walking better. In fact, the kids met me at the plane, and Andy says, "Mom, you get in the wheelchair, and I'll push you."
Oh.
Yeah, and I did, and it was, I thought then he was going to really recover, but for some reason, and I gave him very good food. Everything was from the health store, and food that you should have. No hot dogs, no nothing that would hurt him. He at different times he did suffer a lot of pain, and in fact one day some of the firemen came in to relieve him. He was so bad, and then the only thing that would stop it was the morphine. But I don't believe in any of those medicines. In fact, when my husband died, I'll go back to that just for a second, his face was blue, and he had a cortisone shot, and one of the firemen said to me, "Did your husband ever have a cortisone shot?" And I said, "Yes, he did." He said, "That killed him." I think a lot of that medication is killing people.
Well, there's, sorry.
Go ahead.
A lot to be said for what we have done with traditional medicine, but I believe there's a lot more we could do and learn about the non-traditional.
You know, they're getting a little better. They rave about calcium and omega-3 and D3. Omega-3 is fish oil. We have salmon fish oil. Supposed to be very good for your skin, your heart, your brain. I take 2 of those every day.
And after Andy died, he didn't like to be called Andrew, I know from your book, you went through the process of writing the story. You took his words, and then you also wrote your own story. And I have to share with you, viewers, I read Bink's book. It's beautiful. And I read it aloud to my older 2 sons, who are 14 and 12.
Oh, did you?
They had many of the same experiences. They're Boy Scouts. They go to Awaspi every summer.
Oh.
And it touched them so deeply. And my older son, who's 14, who's using your book for a book report. So I
wonderful. I'd like to see it.
With you. Yes, and we want to get an interview with you for him. But he said that he really felt the emotions, and he knew what it was like to be with Andy in those final days. And my son James, who's 12, loved the fishing pole. He loved that he wanted to have the fishing pole.
Oh, how cute. Wasn't it, darling?
So it's a wonderful story. And you started writing it very soon after Andy's death. Why did you write it, and what was the experience of writing it like?
I'll tell you. After reading his notes, I was going to just type them up for the children. And then I started going on it, and I couldn't stop. In fact, one daughter came over, she said, "Mom, come on out to lunch." She said, "You're sitting in front of that typewriter." I didn't even have a computer. I said, "I can't stop. I will go to lunch with you, though." And I even got up in the middle of the night, the part where he was really dying, and I talked more about God, and that just came to me, and I'm half asleep, and I had to get up and type that. And I was just thrilled when I finished it.
Was it a healing experience to write, or was it painful to relive the illness?
Oh, it was marvelous. I couldn't talk to anybody about it because people don't want to hear it, They kind of feel sorry for it.
It's too painful.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the book, and we had Father Walsh over the other night. Remember I mentioned him so much in the book? Of course, I didn't have the book then. I mean, I had it. I gave him a few copies, and he loves it. And I mentioned him and his kindness.
Yes.
There were so many people. I have a drawer full of the beautiful letters. Eileen gave me an album to put them in, and I'm going to do it, Eileen, really. But the letters of gratitude and ordering more books. I told you one book ordered 325 books. Some nun, a principal in South Haven, New York. And she said, "I want a copy for every student in this school." That is a beautiful book. And priests, one priest wrote, "What a gift, what a beautiful story of your son, and what a gift to him. And he was certainly a gift from God.
And this is just beautiful to me, Bink, because we talk about ethical wills. We've talked it in this show before. It's just a fancy name for a document where you write your story. It's a gift for yourself in the articulation and the realization of what your values are, plus a gift for those who come after you. So not everyone's going to write a book like you did, but you said the story itself was a gift for your family, and you had many realizations and healing writing it. And that's what we recommend everyone to do. Be your story simple, tragic, magnificent, ordinary. Whether you tell it in 10 pages or an entire book, it's a tremendously healing,
and
valuable
it's a consolation
project.
to you and a tribute to them.
A consolation to you and a tribute to them. Absolutely. So now you lost so much, Bink. You lost your husband tragically. You had young children. He was young. You lost your 18-year-old. You've since lost a 49-year-old son. So all that loss, and I'm sure at 95 years you've lost many friends and family also. So what is your coping mechanism? What is the wisdom? Does it go back to that faith in God and the belief that you will be with them
Well,
again?
I believe someday I'm going to heaven, but I got to get the book going first.
You have a lot of business to take care of, and you're still running your business at 95 years, which is a marvelous tribute again to the value of those vitamins. Any other words of wisdom for our viewers, for business people, for young people, for the middle-aged, for the elderly?
Give people a smile.
A smile.
You always do.
No, thank you.
And look at the happy side of life. I could be depressed if I thought of the sad side. But I thank God that I had those wonderful men in my life. They taught me more than I taught them. And I know they're around me all the time. And love your children. It's very important. And they'll love each other.
So give them love before things, time and love before things, and that's a great lesson for us in our busy lives today.
They don't need it. They never had all that stuff. We used to have shoemakers to fix shoes, right? You don't remember that, do you?
Vaguely, from my parents, yes.
When their shoes wore out, they took them to be fixed. And
Yeah, it was not the disposable economy.
or when they got too tight, we had to get them another pair.
Or pass them down. I'm sure with 12 children there was a lot of that.
The boots were passed down, and the dresses. I told you they all slept in one room, a huge room, bigger than this. And they had their 6 beds there, and dressers. And the clothes was a wall of clothes, starting with Eileen. And as soon as they grew out of theirs, they got the other one. But I made most of their dresses. My mother was an inspiration in her sewing ability.
Yes, you learned a lot from her. Beautiful. So God, a healthy lifestyle, a good laugh, a great attitude. This is the wisdom of your life.
And think positive.
And to think positively. Thank you so much, Bink. It really has been a pleasure
I love you.
talking to you.
I want to see you again and again.
You are an inspiration to all of us. We appreciate you being on the show. We will tell the viewers how to get a hold of your book. We'll get the information put up on the screen so that you can purchase Bink's book. It's wonderful, beautifully published, beautifully written. And if you want to purchase her vitamins, we'll tell you how you can do that too. So thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. And we will see you next time on Connection.